everyone. Welcome to Life Extension Live. It's great to have everybody here today. I'm your host, Dr. Mike, and my co-host is...
I'm Dr. Crystal Gossard, Doctor of Clinical Nutrition.
How are you doing, Dr. Crystal?
I'm doing well on this rainy day.
Oh my gosh. I don't know. People join us from all over all over the world.
Yes.
Right. But in South Florida, this is our rainy season, and it is a rainy season.
I think it's great. So I have to tell you really quick, let everyone know, during quarantine, I started planting flowers. Now they're in a pot, but but still, we're not planting outside, but it's in the pot. My flowers are growing. They're doing well. I think I'm developing a green thumb. I'm so happy. So this rain, I love it. The plants love it. I'm happy.
Yeah, that's good. No, I know. Actually, it's a great season for us. This is when, if you're not familiar with South Florida, this time of the year, things just bloom and blossom, and it's awesome. It's beautiful to live in this area. So, Dr. Gossard, we got a lot to. I'm sorry, Dr. Crystal, because you changed it again. She keeps changing it. I don't know. We got okay. This is, I think, could be one of the most important topics we've ever discussed. I really believe that.
I believe so as well.
Yeah. Prevention. I know we hear this a lot, right? This prevention is key. Prevention's the best way to stay healthy, all that kind of stuff. And I think sometimes we get, I don't know, what is it? We get complacent with those kind of phrases and words. And so I really want to, I want to have a show today that really brings back the power in prevention, and including lifestyle, diet, looking at different cultures, and then ultimately looking at lab tests, right? Because that's a great way to look into what's going on inside somebody's body, right? And catching something quick. So I'm happy we're talking about prevention. And I
agree.
know, yeah, there was I can't remember who said this. It was some famous doctor that it's much more cheaper to prevent disease than it is to treat, right?
Oh yes, I've heard the phrase "pay now or pay later."
Yeah, that's true, right?
It's so expensive, but I think as a society, at least in the U.S., we are more reactive than proactive.
Yeah.
So we go into the doctor when we're not feeling well. When we are feeling well, we don't think that we need to go. We don't think that we need checkups.
Yeah.
And we know that, in many cases, if you can catch things early, the outcome is better.
Yeah. So we have Kimbra just joined us and said hi. Regina just said hi.
Hi.
Ametha, Yvette. Oh, Yvette works with Life Extension.
Miss Yvette. Hi, Miss Yvette.
Great to see you guys. Thank you for joining us. Yeah, please say hi, ask questions. We can watch them live, and we would love to talk to you guys directly. So here's the thing. I think one of the reasons a topic like prevention maybe it doesn't resonate as well with people is because so many, and me included, right? We look for targeted things. I have this problem. I need a supplement or a medicine to do that problem, right? We need to, Dr. Crystal, this is your challenge. I'm going to lay it out there for you.
Oh boy.
You have a challenge for this show. You have to make prevention sexy.
Oh, all right.
How you gonna do that?
Should I pop my collar first?
No, that's not what I'm talking about. It looks already popped anyways, but
we're making prevention cool.
Yes. Hi, Joanne. Nice to have you come on board. Yeah. So I know because there's so many other topics in the health world where people just CBD oil, boom, you got thousands of people, right? For guys, erectile dysfunction, thousands of people. How do we as educators with Life Extension, how do we make prevention sexy like that and put it at the top of people's lists? What do you think?
I think what sometimes I like to do is highlight people who have been proactive and have lived a life of prevention and kind of show how they're doing. I mean, I have
Yeah.
an uncle who is in his 90s, and I think that he could probably run faster than me. And it's one of those things, sometimes when you see the examples of people, usually that's what I like to do, is kind of show an example. Or oftentimes whenever I'm kind of teaching and coaching, I usually show a picture of two people who maybe are a little older. And it's the one person who is in an assisted living community. They have limited mobility. They need assistance of others. And then you have another person that's, roughly the same age, and they're out playing golf.
Yeah.
And they're down on the floor with their grandkids, and they're able to play and see their children, grandchildren, great grandchildren grow up. And it's kind of, that sometimes it's, where do you see yourself?
Well, I've told you the story with my dad, right? My dad passed away, had bad Parkinson's and stuff. And for many years, I hate to say it this way, he was kept alive with pharmaceuticals. It wasn't a great life, Crystal. It really wasn't. He was weak. He could barely get up. And I understand Parkinson's plays a role in that, but
yeah,
I love my dad. He's my motivation. I don't want to be like that. I don't want to look like that. My plan, this is my plan, is when I'm in my 80s, 90s, I'm still traveling. You mentioned golf. I love golf. I'm golfing. I'm swimming. Absolutely 100%. And that's where a lot of the things we're going to talk about today become important, because if you incorporate some of this stuff we're going to mention, I think you're putting yourself on a better path to accomplish those kind of goals, right?
Absolutely.
So one of the things I found interesting, and we talked about this before the show a little bit, is where can we highlight prevention in action? Who can we look at and say, you see, guys, if you follow some basic things, dietary, lifestyle, supplements, whatever that is, here's an example of a group of people that are proof it works. And so we decided to look at different cultures, right?
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
And this is what epidemiologists do all the time.
Yeah.
They kind of can identify prevalence or of disease in different areas and try to say, what are they doing that we aren't doing? So, if we're in the U.S., what are they doing right?
Yeah.
How can we incorporate some of those good best practices into our culture, into our society to help us?
Yeah. And I know you put together, so I have it on my other screen over here.
Okay.
You looked at obesity, dementia, or Alzheimer's, the big one, but I think just dementia as a group, right? And then cardiovascular disease and longevity. So and you looked at different cultures, right? Like what cultures are doing well with these things already, and why are they doing well with those things? I love this because it's like, I don't know, what did I say before? I kind of liked it. It's like prevention in action.
Right.
It's not some surreal thing. These little things, I got to do this. No, there's ways to live that have proven out with millions and millions and millions of people of different cultures, and it works.
Yes. And so when you look at, if we take obesity, that was one of the first ones that I identified, because by, the year 2020, 40% of the U.S. is expected to be obese. Now, when you look at some of those numbers, when you compare it to the top 7 major markets, France, Germany, the UK, Spain, Japan, you found that the U.S. is expected to have the highest rate of obesity and Japan the lowest. So we are expected to be at about 40% obesity.
That time frame is what, 2000 what was it?
22. So,
so that's not that far away.
Yes. In a year and a half.
That's not like, I mean, we're still going to be alive to see this.
Oh, absolutely. And unfortunately, our resources, money. It's expensive to have to care for, especially some of the health ramifications of
for sure.
being obese. But guess who was the lowest? Which group?
Well, I can see it here. I have your notes.
I forgot.
I'm cheating.
Japan.
I have a
Well,
cheat
you know
sheet.
what? Maybe that was for the audience. That wasn't a
Yeah.
question
So
for you.
ask the audience. Okay, let's ask Joanne and some of the Yvette. I asked them what you just asked me.
Yes. So I already said it, but maybe they didn't hear. So out of the US, France, Germany, Italy, Spain, the UK, Japan, which country had the lowest, or is expected to have the lowest prevalence of obesity?
Any thoughts, people watching right now? What country? We already know the United States is going to have the highest.
Yes.
That's
and
not
Patricia, we'll talk about dementia after we talk about obesity.
Yeah.
We do have some thoughts on that.
You know what worries me too with the United States obesity thing? Maybe some people are thinking they can answer. You guys take guesses. It's all good. It's the childhood obesity. That's like that's a big. We don't call type 2 diabetes adult diabetes anymore. You know why?
Right.
Pediatric populations are getting type 2 diabetes. It's not juvenile versus adult. This is crazy. Oh, we got some people chiming in.
I think they are all on the right track.
Yes. We got Colleen, Patricia, Regina, all of them saying Japan or Asia. All that's really good. Yvette said Spain. Not a bad choice. Love the country. Love the food. I don't think I would be in danger of obesity in Spain because it's my kind of food. All right, so that's the answer, right? Japan.
Actually, I will spill the beans. It is actually Japan.
Yeah.
So the next question is, what are they doing in Japan? How is it different?
Right. What's going on in that population, right, Dr. Crystal? What's going on? And this is the opportunity we have. Here is prevention in action, right? You have a whole culture of people, a nation of people that are going to experience the lowest rates of obesity by 2022, whatever you said.
Yes.
Why? What are they doing that we could emulate and maybe bring that over to the United States?
Right. So they're more physically active. That's what I discovered. Here's the thing. The cost of driving is more expensive. It's too expensive to own an automobile. So they walk. They use public transportation, which means you usually walk to the public transportation. I like that. Patricia, they don't eat large portions. I did see that. That wasn't in my notes, but I read that it's smaller portions. We have these huge plates. And that's one trick, that whenever I'm coaching and counseling, I say, use the smaller plate.
Yeah.
The dinner plates are way too big. So
in my kitchen right now, I have two types of plates, right? I have what in the United States we call the appetizer plate, which is about the size of your hand, like, I don't know, size of your hand. And then you got the dinner plate, which is like 3 hands. How about get rid of the bigger ones and just go with only small ones? You think that would work?
I think it definitely works.
Yeah.
Something else, on average, they consume about 200 fewer calories than the average American. And then Miss Yvette, yes, you're right. Their diet is different. So high consumption of fish, vegetables, lower consumption of animal fat, meat, and dairy.
What about processed sugar? Is that lower in Japan culture versus America?
I didn't see that. But what's very interesting here, which it's kind of controversial, but the government has gotten involved, which, they're kind of looking at what they did. And there's a law, it's called the Metabo Law. And people age 40 to 74 have to have mandatory annual physicals, and they have to have their waist circumference measured. They're requiring employers to measure the waist circumference of their employees.
Okay, wait, okay, so just slow down. Okay, so this is the Japanese government that is regulating a certain amount of health parameters that have to be measured and maintained for their population. Interestingly, that they're looking at waist circumference.
Right. Yes.
I mean, when we think of obesity, I mean, you think of overall body weight, but beyond that, what could be the more important parameter is actual waist circumference. You might not be obese, but if your waist circumference is too high for your age group, that's not a good thing, right?
That's right. So really, ideally for women, 35 inches is considered.
35 inches?
35. Well, that's not that much, Dr. Mike. I'm pretty close to that.
Oh, sorry. All right, let's move on. I forgot.
You'd be surprised how those inches add up.
I'm gonna hear about this, you guys. I'm gonna get an email from Dr. Crystal later today. You watch.
But it is very, very telling, like where you are carrying your body fat makes a difference. We talk about the pear shape versus more of like the apple shape. Yeah. And that makes the difference, because when you have a lot of fat, that visceral fat, what we call it, kind of surrounding those organs, that increases inflammation in the body, just puts you at an overall risk for many health concerns.
Yeah, well, definitely cardiovascular risk.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. I'm barrel shape. Is that an official? I'm like a barrel. I'm kind of like I put on weight. I'm a short little guy, and I'm a barrel. See, we need a barrel category. We have to understand what that risk is.
There are actually more categories. There's a whole new school of thought where you kind of eat based on your
body shape, all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
I don't know if I buy any of that, but yes, it's a thing. And waist circumference is something that you should keep your eye on. And so we know the Japanese culture, my key takeaways were the smaller portions, number one. So, and that, to me, that translates to start using a smaller plate. Don't pack your plate full of food.
Somebody on here, I'm sorry. Lenitha said use a paper plate.
That's right.
I like that because they're smaller, and then I don't have to do dishes.
Yeah, and the paper can be recycled, so that's another way than using the really large plate.
Dr. Crystal, were you going to demo something right now? You had mentioned you might be. I
was brave earlier.
Well, you had just said you brought out this little tape measure.
I'll do, what? It's whatever it takes to help.
So Dr. Crystal, everybody, is going to give us a demo of how to measure waist circumference.
I can't believe I said I would do this. Yeah. All right, here we go.
But how you do it is actually important, right? It's not the waist measurement isn't down by below your belly button. It's higher, right? Yeah.
A lot. So my navel is right here.
Okay.
Most women, and I would say the smallest part of my waist is up here. So I would usually be tempted to measure up here. I'm like, oh yeah, this is slim and trim. So up here gives me a nice, tiny little waist. But if I do it properly, you find your belly button, and technically don't hold your stomach in. Exhale.
Be normal. Yeah.
And then you'll see, and I'll show you all. I mean, I'm at 33 and a half. So I don't have that much far to go,
You're on the brink.
Yes. And, ideally you then match that, and I'm not going to really show you the details, but you match it with your hip circumference,
Right.
and then you get a ratio.
There's a
of the
ratio there that's very
weight
important to cardiovascular health.
and
Yeah.
and then that can give you some insight. So that's something that you can do in the privacy of your own home.
Yeah. So that was a lot on obesity in Japanese culture. What about dementias? What did you find out about not just Alzheimer's, but dementia, cognitive problems in general?
Well, I did find that India has the lowest incidence of more Alzheimer's is what I found in the world. So, everyone, all the researchers are so intrigued by this, and they're trying to figure out why.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Mike, I guess I can't ask you because you have some of my notes. So maybe we can go back to the group to find out if anyone would like to take a guess at why researchers think India's rate of Alzheimer's is so low.
Well, that's not in your notes, but I think I have an idea.
Okay.
But let's see because this is something that's always interested me. I did an Alzheimer's presentation at a pharmacy group here at Nova University in South Florida. You know them, Dr. Crystal. And I talked about this, that there's an interesting correlation between not just India, but also other third world type countries with low incidence of dementia versus developed countries in higher risk. So if I had to guess, because I don't see it here.
Okay.
And if I had to guess, I think there's a link to the industrialization of our environment. Oh, come on. What do you mean? That's my theory.
Patricia, kudos. Patricia has it. It's the high intake of turmeric in Asia. That's what they're thinking. And
I'll
we
go
know
with that one
turmeric
too.
has one of your favorite nutrients.
Let's agree it's both.
Okay.
Yes, that's true. Turmeric contains 5 to 10% of curcumin.
Yes.
Which is that key compound that we want. We could do a whole show on curcumin. Janet just came in turmeric.
We did, Dr. Mike.
We did?
Yeah.
I don't even remember.
All of you who are listening and watching, if you stay on the page and look through the videos, we have an entire live just on curcumin. Remember, I made the curcumin. I brought it in and we made.
Yeah, you made me drink it.
Yes.
It was the worst thing I've ever put in my mouth.
Yes.
Horrible. But great for you. Great for you. All right. So there again, you guys, the whole point that we want to bring out is that this is prevention in action. This is proof that prevention works. Here you have a whole culture. I don't know the population of India now. What is it? Over 1 billion people. I'm not even sure what the number is. But here, they more spices. And we know those spices like curcumin and turmeric are anti-inflammatory, antioxidants. I think there's something there, right?
Absolutely. And we know that the free curcuminoids can get into the brain, cross the blood-brain barrier.
Yeah.
And they can help in the brain, help the immune system do its job with in the brain with helping to kind of clear out some of those tangles and things like that. So it's we know that curcumin can be very supportive for brain health, inflammation, supporting the role of the immune system in the brain.
Yeah. Number 3, cardiovascular disease, obesity, diabetes, cancer, and longevity. You put down the Mediterranean region. Tell us about that.
Greece, Italy, Spain.
That's my people.
Israel. Yes. Yesterday, last night, I was kind of going over some of my notes and I just pulled up a map. I'm like, what are all the countries? Lebanon. And one day I want to visit that region. I had plans.
Did you see Albania?
No, I didn't.
Albania, that's where my family's actually from. It's just north of Greece. It's a smaller country, and the reason I say that I'm Greek is my family, who was Albanian, actually left and went to Greece because Russia was invading Albania. Albania became, I think it was the only communist country in the Mediterranean region. It became like a base for Russia or whatever, blah, blah, blah. So all my family migrated to Greece. So I say I'm Greek, but technically I'm Albania. But the genetics of those two cultures mix a lot, obviously.
Well, I'll tell you what you find in that culture that makes the difference. Fresh, seasonal, local.
Fresh, seasonal, local. I like that.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. I told you the stories where my Greek grandma, when she would make food, right? Yeah, people, when they think of Greece, they think of lamb and these different meats and all this kind. No, most of it was fruits and vegetables. Lots of olives, lots of olive oil. There was some good red wine being drunk, I'll tell you that. But the meat, the animal portion, they were poor. It was actually very small. But lots of leafy greens, lots of great tomatoes, onions, garlic, all that kind of beautiful stuff. That's good eating.
Yes, and you actually see with the Mediterranean diet, there's up to 9 servings of vegetables per day. And I started thinking, I need to step my vegetable game up. I'm not getting
I'm not either anymore. I'm not.
What am I eating for breakfast, lunch? I mean, you need to have at least 2 to 3 servings per meal.
Yeah. Yeah, we're behind, Dr. Crystal. We got to pick it up, don't we?
Yes. So the other key is the extra virgin olive oil.
Yes, very, very important.
Different.
Yeah, that was an interesting. I don't remember where I read this or whatever, but a lot of people used to think that if you look at not just Greece and Albania, if you just look at a lot of the countries along the Mediterranean, like why less cardiovascular disease as an example versus the United States, and like the French became kind of the French paradox where everybody thought it was the wine. Now, I do think the red wine plays a role. I do. I don't doubt that. But a lot of the Mediterranean nations and cultures, they're Muslim and they don't drink. If they still have that longevity. And so the link was ultimately made to the olive oil. I like that.
I like that too.
Yeah. We got to move on. I mean, my gosh.
This is good stuff, Dr. Mike.
It's great stuff. But we got a show to do. We're making prevention sexy. Is it working so far?
I think so.
I
think we're getting some good interaction with our viewers.
Yeah. So I want to move. So yes, the food, activity level, all that kind of stuff is very important. But there's another level to prevention, disease prevention, that I don't want people to overlook because it's powerful and it's simple, you guys. It's lab testing, right? It's looking at what's going on inside your body. It's a window into your current health issues that might be going on, and it's being able to proactively react to those things going on in those lab tests that allow you to stay ahead of the game and prevent disease. So I want to move into, my sister Cindy's on.
Hi, Cindy. One thing I want to add to that, Dr. Mike, which I think is so important, it helps you to personalize just for your concerns or for your health goals. That's a better way to put it.
Targeted medicine, personalized supplementation. I mean, that's I wrote the book, the supplement pyramid. It's all about finding things that target the things going on in your own health, your own life. And so it's obviously that's medicine and health is not like all for one, right? I mean, it should be personalized. So we wanted to share with everybody 5 lab tests that everyone should consider adding to their annual exam, right?
Right.
And that's an important point there. Adding to what you're already doing. These 5 tests, we believe, these 5 lab tests, we believe could be very important. The first one, Dr. Crystal, that we're going to talk about is advanced cholesterol testing? Tell us about that.
Well, most of us are familiar with the cholesterol panel that we get through our doctor. We look at total cholesterol, LDL. Everyone knows that's the bad cholesterol. See, I
Yeah.
put that in quotations. HDL, that's the good cholesterol. Occasionally, your doctor may test VLDL, but not so much. You're going to get cholesterol, LDL, HDL.
And triglycerides.
Oh, triglycerides. Yes,
Yeah.
That's true. Now, when we look at cholesterol, first of all, total cholesterol is a calculated number. So that's not really, you can't look at that one number and know what's going on. You have to look at the breakdown of the LDL, the HDL, because that's a part of that total cholesterol number. Now, when you look at LDL and HDL, first thing to remember is that these are, I call these transport trucks. And these are trucks that's either delivering packages of cholesterol, which is LDL, or picking up packages of cholesterol. That's the HDL, right?
Yep.
But that's it. Now, let's say you have a huge tractor trailer that's delivering that cholesterol, that LDL is large, or maybe you have lots of little small Uber cars that's delivering the cholesterol.
Yeah.
And so when you start thinking about that,
think about congestion, right?
Exactly. Yes. Thinking about traffic jams. Which would you prefer? Do you want the larger particles or the smaller LDL particles? And the same with HDL. Do you want a whole lot of cars out there or smaller cars? So when you kind of think about that, then you can now use that analogy and realize, one, I'm not getting that information with the cholesterol test that my doctor is doing on me. I'm not finding out, do I have a large particles? Do I have smaller particles? And all of that matters.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, it's not just LDL. LDL comes in different sizes, right? Large and buoyant, which is better, versus small and condensed, which is not as good, right? So you want to know really where you break down, and that's what advanced cholesterol test does. Robson, our producer, had a picture of the results. Robson, do you want to make that full? There you go. Yeah. So that's an advanced, that's just an example, and that's only part of it. There's so much more, but it looks at different LDLs, different HDLs. They're true measurements. It's not calculations. That's the type of testing that we need to be doing when it comes to cholesterol, right?
Right. So like, for example, that first one, the LDL particle, that's giving you your particle number. More particles equal more interaction with your arterial wall. Some other values you see there, one that's highlighted, small LDL particles. It's the second from the bottom value. This on this sample report, this person has elevated small LDLs. Those small LDLs are more likely to penetrate the arterial wall. Right. You don't want lots of small, dense LDL particles.
Yeah.
So this is kind of an example of the advanced cholesterol testing, and this is important with helping you to identify, your risk and really how aggressive you need to be.
And I like what you just said there. It's really about, as a clinician, I'm always trying to decide what is Dr. Crystal's true cardiovascular risk? Like what does that really mean? And the advanced cholesterol test allows me to make a more accurate assessment of your true risk, right? That's what's key there. Let's go on. A lot more to cover here. Glucose. Fasting glucose is a part of most like tests that people get every year. It's a quick little look at where you're at some point in time, where your glucose level is. You guys know glucose is your blood sugar. We want to keep that down as much as we can. But that basic test is not enough either, right?
No, well, the glucose, that's a snapshot in time. And most of your physicians understand that. And so if they I don't want to say the savvier ones, but if you
Am I a
develop
savvier one?
diabetes, they may then transition you to start measuring your hemoglobin A1C.
Right.
But there are some limitations with the hemoglobin A1C. One is that it's an average of, your glucose level over roughly about, 3 months. However, what it's missing are the everyday spikes.
The sugar spikes, right?
The sugar spikes in people who aren't even diabetic. They're not pre-diabetic. But when you have sugar spikes after you eat, that when your blood sugar rises, spikes up high, then the body over responds, shoots out tons of insulin to try to get that blood sugar down, because the body's in code red. We need to bring the sugar down. Let's get the insulin pumped out. And what's really happening is the insulin starts to become damaging.
Yeah.
The body,
it's the sugar spikes that lead to ultimately the insulin resistance.
Exactly.
Where insulin just doesn't work as good, and that's going to lead then to the hypoglycemia and all that kind of stuff. So your basic glucose test, fasting glucose, doesn't look at any of that. Yep. A1C, hemoglobin A1C is better than the standard glucose, but there's another test that we think that everyone should add to their annual exam, right? What is that one?
Yes, that is called the GlycoMark test. And it's measuring an analog, a substance that kind of looks like glucose. And actually, Robson, if we can make the sample report larger on the screen. So this is kind of identifying this substance, which is 1,5-anhydroglucitol, very complex name of what we're looking at, but it kind of looks like glucose, and the body usually keeps it at a steady, constant state. But it starts to be excreted when you're having glucose spikes. So this test, what you're looking at on the screen, patient 1 and 2, they have the exact same A1C, 7.4, which we know that's high.
Right.
That's
that's high. Yeah.
Diabetic level. But look at their spikes. Patient 1, they are having less spikes throughout the day. Over a 2-week period. Patient 2, they're having tons of spikes. And we can identify those spikes with this particular marker. Yeah. And why is this important? Again, when you look at what's happening in the body between patient 1 and patient 2, although their A1C is the same, patient 2 is suffering from more increased risk for damage to their retina. So patient 2 is probably more likely to maybe go blind from their diabetes, more likely to have arterial plaque, more likely to have inflammation in the body, more likely to have what we call, glycation, damage to your protein structures in the body. Yeah. So it's really just giving us a little, adding another level of information to
beyond that basic test, right? It's just like the advanced cholesterol test. There's more tests out there that I believe we need to be utilizing in this country that better assesses risk, that allows you to know better really where you stand in terms of prevention. Now we're going to move over to another one. This is number 3, right?
Yes.
This is the one that no one really talks about that much, because it's going back to that idea of sexy. Hopefully we're making prevention sexy again. But bone health.
Oh, yes.
No one really talks about osteoporosis. I mean, it's osteoporosis, osteopenia. These are devastating diseases, you guys. But no one's really all that interested in, unless you have to go through some of that standard conventional testing. There are other tests you can do, right? Other than that standard measurement of your bone density, right? Tell us a little bit about advanced bone testing.
Well, this is looking at bone markers. And the first thing to kind of just think about to understand some of these bone markers is to one, understand the anatomy of bone. We know that 90% of kind of the bone matrix is collagen. That's number one. So a lot of what we can do from a laboratory perspective is look at collagen. Is your collagen breaking down? So we can measure, and Robson actually will put up a sample report for us of some of those tests. One in particular, the first one that you see, we're looking at peptides of collagen. And this is giving us an idea of bone turnover. If your bones are breaking down, then you're going to have more of this collagen from the bone in the bloodstream.
Right.
And so we know that it positively correlates to risk of hip fracture in postmenopausal women. The second one, osteocalcin. Any of you who are taking vitamin K, this is, it relates to osteocalcin. This is what really helps the calcium stick into the bone matrix. So osteocalcin is a protein that helps to bind calcium, but it must be activated by vitamin K. So it's kind of a marker that's often looked at with people who are on like bisphosphonates, some of the drugs to help with their osteoporosis, to kind of see really, are these drugs working? Right. So that's something else that you can incorporate. And then the vitamin D, of course, we know vitamin D is needed to get calcium into the body, calcium absorption. Right here, this person's vitamin D, have to get really close, is about 39. Here at Life Extension, we like to see that higher. We like to see vitamin D between about 50 to 80. That's our optimal.
Right.
And then the last one is, I like to call this pre-collagen. So we know that, again, the bone is made of collagen, and this is kind of like a pro type of collagen that can indicate if you have, a healthy concentration, that is directly proportional to new bone formation. So that's a good sign. Let's say that, you're starting, Rad asked about hormones. How do they relate to disease and organs? We know that hormones absolutely relate to bone health, particularly estrogen can affect bone health, and it can affect heart health. We talked about that earlier as well. So yes, there is a connection between all of those.
Dr. Crystal, now the radiologist in me.
Oh, I knew it.
Well, it's my training, is what I did.
I like it. I love your perspective, Dr. Mike.
And now all this is great information. It doesn't replace the standard DEXA scan that's what we do to really look at and measure bone density. That's important still to get. But even if you start maybe a little younger than when we would start DEXA scans, maybe you can start building a good bone healthy regimen based on some of these labs. So when you do go get a DEXA, it's great. Normal bone density, right?
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you for it. They do not replace and they're not diagnostic tools, but they're markers. So it's really
just markers. Yeah. It gives you an idea. Yeah. Let's go on to sleep hormones. This is big, right? This is I don't think everybody knows sleep's important. Like that's not the question. But I don't think our audience knows that there's ways to actually look at the sleep hormones to see, are you balanced? Is there a nice relationship between the sleep hormones and the ones that get you up to move in life, right? Tell us about that.
Yes. So this is when you look at sleep hormones, Life Extension likes to kind of pair melatonin, which is the sleep hormone that we all know and love, to cortisol, which is our fight or flight hormone that's involved with energizing and kind of waking us up in the morning, helping us to get our day started. And a great way to kind of measure those is through your saliva. And you can measure them. And when you're testing them, we actually have a test result. You do samples throughout the day. We want, the saliva sample first thing in the morning. In the morning, we should see cortisol lower, cortisol higher, melatonin lower. And then at night, we should see melatonin higher, cortisol lower. So it's really helping us to kind of identify, one, are you waking up tired? Why?
Yeah.
Are you having trouble sleeping? Why?
But this is, Dr. Crystal, this is a good example where when you hear what you just said, some people might be like, wait, I got to do how much saliva testing? You want me to collect this throughout the day? But it goes back to what we said originally. It's so much easier to apply prevention strategies. It's cheaper to apply prevention strategies than it is to deal with diseases down the line, right?
Absolutely. And I do want to, we have a great question that came in from Rad, or Rod, I hope, Rad. What
Rod.
about no sleep after menopause? I think that's a great question. Right now we're kind of talking about melatonin and cortisol, but one of the main markers that we look at for hormones in sleep is progesterone. We know that progesterone can be very calming. It's one of the first hormones to kind of start declining during perimenopause and menopause, along with estrogen. But it's that progesterone that's needed for sleep. So
that's a good point. I think menopause, women in postmenopause, two big complaints: headaches. Well, three: headaches, constipation, and they can't sleep. And a lot of that comes through the relationship between estrogen and progesterone. Mm-hmm. As you mentioned, Dr. Crystal, both drop, but the progesterone drops off at a far greater rate because you're not ovulating anymore. And that's a lot of the progesterone comes from after you ovulate. And so it's called estrogen dominant. So a lot of women, even though estrogen's dropping, they're still dominant with estrogen because progesterone is like, choop, it's gone. And that causes some of the sleep issues and other issues like, even cystic breast disease and fibroids and all that kind of stuff. So progesterone, I'm glad you brought that up. Progesterone is a key hormone that postmenopausal women or even perimenopausal women that really should look at. The last one we're going to talk about is a urine test. And this is one that we think you should add to your annual exams, and it's for neurotransmitters.
Yes, and when you think neurotransmitters, I think energy, I think sleep, focus, memory, GI issues, weight management. All of these are affected by neurotransmitters and more.
Yeah. Now there's a caveat. I mean, we're still learning a lot about neurotransmitters, how they relate to each other, how they ultimately relate to health. But there are some, I know Life Extension offers a nice neurotransmitter profile. And again, it's not diagnostic in a sense. It just gives you information of where you might want to focus. If you're low in serotonin, maybe there's a risk there for a down mood, depression. So maybe you do things to boost serotonin. So it's good information. At the end of the day, man, your brain has to work. If your brain's not working, you're not going to make it very long, right?
That's true. That's true. And sometimes when you just don't feel yourself, or you're having kind of like the mystery symptoms, I think sometimes it's good to kind of take a step back and see if there is something going on, in the undercurrents of your life.
You have a lot of undercurrents with 2 kids and a husband.
Yes, actually.
In quarantine.
I know. We're surviving though.
I know. So that's we covered advanced cholesterol testing, advanced glucose testing, advanced bone testing, sleep hormones, and neurotransmitters. Again, add these to those standard annual exams that you get, because it builds a really good prevention strategy that personalizes some of the suggestions that some of the wellness specialists at Life Extension can make for you. If you want to take a look at a lot more of these labs, lifeextension.com/labs. That's right, Dr. Crystal?
That's right.
lifeextension.com/labs, and that'll take you to the main page where you can take a look at all the ones that we offer. There's a bonus one you wanted to talk about, right?
I did. Thyroid.
And
I bring this up simply because thyroid controls, that's your metabolic throttle. It's telling your cells what to do with the energy that you take in every day from food. And it controls so many things, from the cardiovascular health, your reproductive cycle. It's just your thyroid hormones are important, and many people aren't having, I personally think, aren't having their thyroid properly.
It's not tested the way it should. The standard, again, we're comparing a lot of this, the cholesterol, the sugar, and now thyroid, to that conventional standard test. And it's not saying that you don't get that standard test. There's just other things you can do that give you a better look, a better window into what's actually happening, right?
Yes. And I preach this to my dad all the time. I don't know if he's watching, but my dad, has thyroid issues. And he always, when he has his labs done, he sends me his labs. And I say, okay, did they test? They always test TSH.
Yeah, that's the standard. That's the standard, right? Yeah.
What else? Did you get a T4? Did you get a T3?
He's probably like, oh, stop it with all that.
Well, he always, I think he forgets when he goes in, because these are things that you have to prompt the doctor, ask them, hey, will you also measure this, and this? So
like T4 is a big one, right? I mean, I think more and more researchers are finding that's probably free T4 is probably more powerful than TSH, right?
Right. And just to clarify to the listeners, TSH is the signal from the brain to tell your thyroid gland to make the thyroid hormone. So TSH truly is not a thyroid hormone. It's thyroid stimulating hormone. So it's stimulating the thyroid to make the hormone. So when you're testing kind of up at that higher level, sometimes you can miss the actual thyroid hormones.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So again, it goes back that there's more advanced thyroid panels that we would encourage you to take a look at. T3, free T4. There's even one called reverse T4 that you could
reverse T3.
I'm sorry, reverse T3 that you could look into as well. So again, at the end of the day, this has been all about making prevention sexy. Dr. Crystal, I think you did it.
Yay.
My sister is asking a question about a male who's in his late 50s, early 60s, about sleep. Sleep, insomnia is complicated. It's not necessarily just hormones, whatever. But I will mention, Cindy, that it could be the same thing. And men get estrogen dominant as well. As testosterone levels drop, why does that happen? Number one, we don't make as much testosterone, and more of it gets converted into estrogen. So men can also become estrogen dominant, and that can have some of the same results as it has in women.
Yes. And Cindy, with sleep in men, sometimes I also look at neurotransmitters.
Yeah.
Looking at, the serotonin. Do we have enough serotonin? Sometimes, you can start looking at, tryptophan can be supportive, sometimes a 5-HTP. That actually, if you look at the pathways, tryptophan converts into, and tryptophan, we know that's what everyone thinks makes you sleepy from Thanksgiving dinner.
Turkey. Yeah.
Tryptophan converts into melatonin. Yeah. So, that's another way to kind of look at addressing those issues.
Dr. Crystal, thank you.
You're welcome. I'm looking here for more questions. I like this. Maybe we should do a Q&A session.
Yeah, maybe one time we'll have a live where it's just Q&A. We're just,
I know, and I'll have to
answering-
have my laptop, of course, because we don't
yeah, you
know
gotta check. We don't know everything. We got to look things up. We got to check, make sure we're saying the right stuff because we always want to be 100% accurate. That's really important to us at Life Extension. So I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Hopefully, this just gives you some ideas that prevention and action does work. Right? We see that with those other cultures. So lifestyle diet does work. And then there's other things you can do like advanced lab tests that just give you a better window of what's really going on in your body. And that's a key to prevention. Dr. Crystal,
Yes.
say hi to your family and everything.
Hi, my sister was on. I didn't get a chance to say
That's
hi.
okay. All right. Everybody else, don't forget lifeextension.com/labs. lifeextension.com/labs, and you can check out some of the other not only these labs but a whole bunch more that we offer. And don't forget, like, comment, share, subscribe. What did I miss?
That's it.
Are you sure?
Yes. Like, comment, share, subscribe.
All right, guys, thank you so much for joining us. Take care, be healthy, keep prevention at the top of your list of things to do to stay healthy and well for a long time. I'm Dr. Mike. Take care. Bye-bye.